Hi, Grade 5. Let's learn about narrative texts, more specifically, fiction narrative writing. And you might be wondering, what exactly is that? Well, I've heard that narrative texts are stories about people, thoughts, feelings, and so on. These all occur at different times in history. But what does that really even mean? Luckily enough, I have here a definition for us. This definition reads, a narrative text is a piece of writing which tells a story and entertains the reader or listener through the author's imagination. It is a story with complications or problematic events and tries to find resolutions to solve the problem. So essentially, our main character comes up with a problem. And through the problem, a bunch of events and different things occur to the character that makes things maybe a little bit more challenging for them. So, in the end of our story, we come up with a resolution that then has these problems or events result into something good. And oftentimes, these good things can teach a lesson or they can, you know, show something new to the character that they had never really known before. So you might be wondering, now that I know what a narrative text is, how do I make one? So there are 5 different things to consider when making a narrative text. 1, we have orientation. 2, we have our problem. 3, we have all of our events. 4, we have our resolution. And 5 is special features, but we'll get to those. So let's work on learning about what these are. So for number 1, we have orientation. Orientation is the time, the place, and the characters. So these are all factors which establishes interest in your story and the situation that's happening. So for a reader, this is one thing that you're really going to look at before you even dive too far into what you're reading. So your characters, the time and the place are really what the rest of your story is based around. Second, we have our problem. So as it reads here, a problem is something that is established and can cause suspense and add to the conflict of the story. This often leads to exciting parts, so your reader will really get hooked if there's some problems that are, needing to be solved. So with problems, hand in hand to that, we have our third one, which are events. So with our events, we have our problem, and our problem creates events for our characters. So this reads here, it includes some character description based on clear types, using description and dialogue. It focuses on predictable events to develop your plot. So events are often consequences, or they take place because of a problem. And the way that your character deals with these certain events will tell your reader a little bit more about them. So your reader will get the chance to learn more about your character through dialogue and how they're dealing with certain situations. And number 4, we have our resolution. So resolution can kind of go hand in hand with the word resolve. So resolving is coming up with a final ending to a whole problem, situation, or event. So this reads here, it says it includes a reasonable ending but may also have some loose ends. So you can definitely leave your reader on a cliffhanger. A cliffhanger is when, your reader's hanging off the cliff and they just want to read more. So for example, you could say, and then, or later on, ... just to leave your readers wanting to learn more about your character and what's happening within the rest of your story. Last but not least, we have our special features. So you might be wondering, what exactly are those? Well, our special features are, a good title or some illustrations to pair with your story. They might be connecting words related to time. So like I said, later on, or after that, or that night. Something to kind of boost your overall story and get your reader really, really hooked and wanting to just get in there, dive into the action, and learn what's going on. Another thing about narrative texts is they're often written in past tense, written either in first person, so I or we, or third person, which would be he, she, them, they. So that's another way that your character can become personified and come to life and have your reader kind of feel like they know the character or they relate to them in some sense. And another special feature is action verbs, or verbs that relate to the character's thoughts and feelings. So again, that might get your reader really hooked to who your character is, and they might kind of relate to them, or they might see them as a very intriguing or interesting person whom they want to learn more about. And oftentimes, your characters are reflections of who you are as an author, which is pretty cool to include that in your story. And last but not least, you would want your stories to include dialogue. Dialogue is so important because it allows, again, your reader to learn about your character, either it be about who they are, some of their personality traits, their thoughts, ways they interact with people. These are all ways that you can enhance your writing, specifically narrative texts, to make them better. So of these 5 things, you want to make sure you include them. That way you can have your reader hooked and you can also have fun writing it as an author. So remember all these things and happy writing.